Cooking was born the day man invented fire. Costume was a little too short, by the way. Pants are on. And today cooking is, well, more accessible than it was before. Regional recipes that have never been seen before were globalized, and we have access to just about all knowledge on Earth at our fingertips. So that makes me wonder, how did cooking change throughout the centuries, millions of years, lead to some of our most favorite foods of all time? So today, we're gonna cook through 1,000,000 years of history to find our answer. So we're starting in the year 2.5 million BC, the Ice Age to be specific. No fire yet, but meat, raw meat, and also no salt or spices. So maybe it wasn't that good. This is more or less what people back then were working with. No tools to hunt, and they just lived off things they could catch, you know, with their bare hands. Or meat from dead animals they found. Yeah, it's gross, but you know, that's what happened, so I'm sorry. Whoa, a beautifully cut filet mignon? Bon appetit. I'm not eating that, okay? You know what this tastes like. Tartare? That, but not good. So we move on to 50,000 BC. Yeah, it took a while to figure this out, but we have tools and fire. This is when early humans finally crafted primitive weapons, which meant clothes, for one. But what this actually meant is they could hunt and cook. So here we have our protein. Might have looked like this, but we're gonna cook it over live fire as closely as you might have expected. I wish that we had salt and spices, so we're gonna make this work. So I would imagine that they cooked it any way they possibly could have, right? So we have this suspended over a fire. Their setup was probably a little more primitive, but we tried to get it close. We bound this to the stick. It is over a hot fire. I'll rotate this periodically as it cooks, and now we wait for it to cook through. All right, it's been about 1.5 hours. This is taking a really long time, so we've made some modifications to speed this up. So I found a little rosemary growing wild, so I just plucked a little branch, put it on here, and it'll perfume with rosemary. I know they didn't have spices, but I'm sure this happened accidentally. This is hot on my balls. All right, this is our final modification. I call this, I'm not going to wait any longer for this. I'm putting it directly over the fire. I'm sure that they had to do the same thing when they were getting really hungry and they're like, why the f is this taking so long? It smells great, honestly. It just smells like a smoked steak. I wish there was salt on this, but maybe it's still good. We'll find out. Pretty good, honestly. Doesn't need anything on it. You basically got a beautiful smoked steak. Despite this being literally the oldest cooking technique known to mankind, it still exists today, and for good reason. Moving on. Now we're in year 0, and in Egypt, domesticated grains now exist, so we have flour. But the big news, they learned how to ferment. So we have history's first starter and potentially first sourdough bread, made from emmer wheat flour, which is still used today. Ooh, this is a little bit more modernized, sort of French style bread, but I do think it embodies what was made way back when. Fresh ground grains, naturally occurring bacteria in the form of a starter, and salt. That is it. Well, also water. It's toasty, it's tart, it's bready. You can really taste the grains in it. It's got this hearty, deep, nutty flavor. Think about how much you love bread. If this is where it started, that's a big thumbs up. Moving on. Big fast forward to 6th century China. History has given us soy sauce, rice, and woks. And now we get the earliest record of fried rice, made with leftovers. Yes, even back then, made with leftovers. You get a hot wok, they added some oil, maybe animal fat or whatever they had, throw in some chopped vegetables. I added carrots and the whites of green onion. You'd add your rice, stir fry that. Maybe they seasoned it up with salt, then follow with all important soy sauce. And this ingredient, being created so long ago, is the bedrock of some of the greatest flavors on planet Earth. Stir fry that to combine, transfer to a finished bowl, and let's taste. This is about as basic as a fried rice is gonna get. This is a perfect combination. It was likely made out of necessity, but they were thinking, this is still gonna taste good. This was more of like peasant food or something that was kind of thrown together with what you had. Nowadays, people are throwing in short rib, me. Pork belly, me. Bacon, me. But I don't think that the modern interpretations are that far off of what was made 1,400, 1,500 years ago. That's a good recipe. Withstanding over 1,000 years, good job. Moving on. Now we're in 9th century, the medieval period. Dried noodles arrived in Italy for the first time due to the Arab invasion in Sicily. Yeah, I know, you're getting a little history lesson here. Listen, I didn't know this either. Supposedly, this dish would help their sick get their strength back, probably because of the insane amount of carbohydrates. This dish was called itria, or etria. You took stone-milled semolina flour, hydrated it with water, mixed it until it formed a dough, kneaded it a little bit. They didn't have plastic wrap, so lightly grease a bowl, cover with a damp linen, and let it rest. At that point, stone-milled semolina flour to dust, and roll it out until it's very, very thin. I mean, this is like 1/16 of an inch, maybe even thinner. Think flat pasta. Now fold the dough up and cut into 1/4 or 1/8 inch wide strips. Open them up, dust with more semolina. From this point, it was very basic. They cooked it in a beef stock, transferred to a bowl. Maybe they would add some cooked meats, whatever they had. I had cooked chicken, but who knows? Maybe they were using ox. If they had cheese, they would add cheese, but I don't know. Maybe that was a luxury back then. Now let's taste and see what pasta was like in the 800s. It looks very reminiscent of some of the modern pastas we see today. I like these noodles. They're a little chewier. They got some toothsomeness to it, but they also have a little texture from the semolina. It's fragrant with the olive oil, which I love. Cheese is really the only level of saltiness you get. Because the sauce doesn't really cling that well to the noodles, it doesn't carry salt very well. This was the beginnings of maybe a cacio e pepe. That's not a fact, that's a guess. Moving on. As we fast forward to the next 9 centuries, 11th and 12th century, we first see sugar grown in Europe, so shout out to Europe for that. 14th century, the first recorded recipe for lasagna in the King of Naples cookbook. Also in the 14th century, the first recorded recipe of a sweet fruit-filled pie. In the 15th century, first recorded brewing hot coffee in Yemen. If you're the one responsible for coffee, God bless you. And then in the 16th century, for the first time, strawberries go from wild to finally domesticated, one of the greatest fruits of all time, at least that's my opinion. But then we arrive to the 18th century, 1774 to be exact. The first known recorded curry recipe that we could find in the English language, and we found the actual recipe with their exact measurements. It calls for 2 small chickens, so I'm breaking down 1 whole chicken into 6 to 8 pieces, and I'm only using the legs and the thighs. My assumption is chickens back then probably were not gargantuan like they are today. Shout out to farming practices that are questionable. Bring about 1 quart of water to a boil over high heat. In a 3-quart sauce pot, I put the chicken pieces into that, boiled for 5 minutes. Then I mortar and pestled 1 ounce of turmeric and a spoonful of ginger, followed by 1 jalapeno rough chopped and 3 Thai chilies, also rough chopped. The recipe only says pepper, so I added what I felt like would probably taste good. Smash that until you get a nice paste. Season to taste with salt. Now remove the chicken from the boiling water. Heat a 6-quart Dutch oven over medium-high heat. Once hot, add 2 ounces or 56 grams of butter, which I would literally never do. Add 1 medium onion chopped. Soften that, add the chicken to the pot, and then let them both brown together. Surprisingly enough, the chicken did brown. Now at this point, you put the curry paste in the pot, stir everything together, let it get nice and aromatic. You're gonna top that chicken off with the liquid that the chicken was poached in. Now let that stew for 30 minutes, then add 1 pint or 480 milliliters of heavy cream and the juice of 2 lemons. Bring that back to a boil. Of course, I seasoned everything vigorously with salt, and let's see how an old recipe from the 1700s tastes. It's pretty dang good. I can see how this sort of shaped and influenced a lot of the curries that are out there today. This is a very soupy curry. It's more of like a chicken noodle soup mixed with a curry, maybe even more reminiscent of a Thai curry. I wonder if there was maybe influence there. Not bad, considering they didn't have that much back then. Moving on. Only a few years later in 1790, you see Italy's first recorded recipe for pasta with tomato sauce. The Spanish brought tomatoes to Europe from Mexico in the 15th century, but Europeans were like, oh my God, that's poisonous. Then of course, the wealthy got hold of them. And as we all know, once the wealthy like something, everyone else wants to like it too. The rest is history. I mean, it was really basic, and it was just simmered with onions, garlic, celery, basil, and you just added your pasta to that, plated it, maybe they added some cheese, and we'll taste. This looks like it needs a spicy meatball. Pasta with tomato sauce. We take it for granted these days. I have immediately a newfound appreciation for pasta with tomato sauce. I've always just been like, oh, it's there. But there's a lot to this. With the naturally occurring glutamate that's in the tomato, it's rich, but it's also acidic and sweet, so it cuts the richness. It's so perfectly balanced. The chew from the noodles, it's a beautiful thing. I'm glad this exists. Moving on. Now things get a little interesting in the 19th century in Edo, Japan, which is present-day Tokyo. The creation of modern-day sushi, otherwise known as nigiri zushi, or today, nigiri. It's the first sushi to feature raw fish. Why does that matter? Because originally they were using nare sushi, which is a long fermented fish which sometimes took years. And guess what? This is the early inkling of everybody going, hey, I don't like waiting a long time for and so they just started using raw fish. When this nigiri was made, they sliced nice, high quality raw fish, but the balls of rice that these fish were put on were significantly larger than what we use today. They were huge, actually. This looks a little funky. I probably could have done better here, but we'll give it a taste.
I had a big bite. I ate the whole thing. Give me a second. There's so much food.
That is really good though. There's something beautiful about this because the process of making sushi, I don't think has changed a ton since it was invented. And yet it is probably one of the most sought after foods in human existence. Moving on. In 19th century England, the Duke of Wellington defeated Napoleon in battle. How do you celebrate that? Beef en croûte is renamed in the Duke's honor, and Beef Wellington is born. Gordon Ramsay didn't invent Beef Wellington. I know, I wanted it to be him that invented it, trust me. Traditionally, it's wrapped with crepes, hence the French influence. Ah oui, bonjour. You put duxelle on the prosciutto, you got your seared beef, you brush it with mustard, roll it up nice and tight, and then you wrap it in puff pastry, brush it with egg wash. Obviously, I'm a fancy boy, so I added a little extra sheet of latticed puff pastry on top, brushed again, baked until a beautiful, luxurious golden brown, rested for 5 minutes, sliced, and you have a perfectly stunning, medium rare, luxurious Chateaubriand interior and a crispy, buttery, flaky crust. If the Duke of Wellington saw this right now, he would drop trowel. I wish more places served this. It's starting to get to a point where it almost feels archaic, but it shouldn't. This is a timeless dish. It is so good. Beef fillet is more of a texture thing than a beef thing, but all the different flavors, the mushroom, the toasted butter flavor from the crust, and then of course just light beef wrapped in cured meat. I mean, come on, dude. Fatty, rich, delicious, deeply flavored. There's a reason why everyone loves Gordon Ramsay so much for this. There's a reason why I love beef Wellington. It's because it's good, brother. Moving on. Now, staying in the 19th century for one more major advancement, the 1889 invention of the margherita pizza. This came later than I thought it would. It was to honor Queen Margherita and the Italiano flag. Maybe the most important, this is supposedly the first time mozzarella cheese was ever put on a pizza, which, geez, really took you that long, huh? I'm kidding, Italians. Please don't be mad at me. It was probably a naturally leavened dough, if I had to guess. That dough was shaped into large balls and allowed to pre-ferment for a long period of time to give it extra flavor and develop maturity, which was, of course, then punched down, shaped into a pizza, sauced with a light tomato sauce, fresh mozzarella, fresh basil, into an extremely hot pizza oven, cooked promptly within about 60 to 90 seconds, and then enjoyed. If you've ever been to Naples or had a good Neapolitan pizza, it's the fragrance of the basil, a little bit of olive oil somewhere in there, but more importantly, that nice fresh mozzarella. Probably one of the most harmonious creations of flavor I know. Moving on. We finally made it to the 20th century, 1907. Auguste Escoffier. If you don't know this name, you need to know this name. He did many things, including what we're covering today, solidifying the recipes in the lineup of French mother sauces. There's only 5: velouté, espagnole, sauce tomate, bechamel, and hollandaise. Fun fact, if you're a line cook and you're watching this, please remember those 5 for the next time that your line cook mate decides to randomly ask you in front of the chef, and then you turn around and tell them the right thing, and then they look like an idiot. Velouté, French for velvety. Basically a roux, cooked down, and you add a white chicken stock. You whisk until thick and season with salt. Obviously, this can go on a lot of things. It's really the base of a lot of other sauces, in my opinion, but it can kind of go on any savory dish. Next, espagnole, a roux-based sauce darkened with brown stock, tomato puree, becomes a base for mushroom sauces, demi-glaces, and beyond. This is a deep flavored sauce. Think about beef, game meat, maybe pasta. Speaking of pasta, sauce tomate, it's basically a red tomato sauce. Passed through chinois, seasoned with salt, cooked down. You know where this would go. Now, the only 2 that we really use commonly today is first, bechamel, a roux-based sauce that's thinned out with milk. It's thick, creamy. This is a very common start to many cheese sauces. And of course, the second one being hollandaise, probably one of the most known mother sauces. It's literally just an emulsion of butter and egg yolk, essentially. And where do you see hollandaise? Eggs Benedict, on top of asparagus, on top of crab cakes. I mean, it is the all-in-one buttery, creamy sauce that can go on just about anything and make it taste delicious. We have a hollandaise here. This is the only one that we still use today and love. It's a perfect thing. Immediately, it's a ribbony, luxurious, rich, buttery, but also acidic and balanced sauce. All the other sauces, like bechamel, used commonly to make Mornay sauces or emulsify other things, things like velouté and espagnole, they have their own specific applications just like this. Meats, fish, potatoes. Although we don't use all the French mother sauces all that often in the modern day, they were the bounce board to the ideology behind great sauce making and how important they are to make everything taste good. Moving on to the 1920s, the Caesar salad. Oh yeah, the Caesar salad, which was invented in Italy. Wrong! It was invented by an Italian chef named Caesar in Tijuana, Mexico. And it's f***ing delicious. Literally, Dijon, egg yolks, anchovy, lemon juice, water, salt, garlic. These are the major ingredients. And then all of that was emulsified with oil, tossed with crunchy croutons, which you dressed romaine lettuce, and that is it. Sometimes you can add a little extra Parmesan on top, a little fresh cracked black peppy. That's it, okay? I don't want to see any grape tomatoes in your Caesar salad. Stop that. I love Caesar salad. I think it is quite literally the greatest salad ever invented in human history. Not only that, but the dressing, I could quite literally drench myself in a pool and stay in it for up to 3 to 4 days, maybe 5. Bon appetit. It's everything I could want in a salad. First off, cheese. Second off, croutons. Third off, rich, yet acidic, yet balanced, garlicky, umami dressing. This might be one of the best things on the list today. Moving on. Now, moving on to 1937. There's only one canned meat that I'll ever think is okay, and that is Spam, okay? Chefs love it, islanders love it. It's a beautiful thing, honestly. This was invented out of necessity during World War II, shipped overseas, and guess what? Everyone found out, hey, this is actually kind of fire. A common way to cook it would be to sear it in a pan till nice and brown and served over rice, brushed with a little bit of sweet soy. If you think Spam is gross, I need you to reanalyze, okay? I'm telling you, this is one of the very few times I'll go, hey, this weird thing in a can is actually kind of good. Spam is a special product. This is loved by many people from many backgrounds. A lot of people turn their nose up at it for a long time. And for no good reason. If you like bacon and ham, you're gonna like Spam. Wait, does that rhyme? Spam, you can't have that. You cannot have that slogan. 15 million. This was something that was created pretty much out of necessity. It was created to be cheap, it was created to last a long time, and it was created during wartime. But it's still around, and that's because it's good. It's salty, it's fatty, it's rich. It doesn't taste like it looks when it comes out of the can. And when you sear it, you put a little glaze on it, serve it with rice or in between buns. If you are hurting for cash and this is in front of you, this is like a savior. Moving forward to 1954, we're getting close to the modern day, the unlikely introduction of the TV dinner. This is all about convenience. We want it now, we want it easy. Just follow the conveniently provided instructions and heat it up just in time for my favorite TV show.
TV dinner. So convenient. I could just sit here for hours, days. Why ever move my legs?
Anyway, this looks the funny thing is, this is already made for your convenience, but even in the production, they made it convenient. They didn't even use real potatoes in the mashed potatoes. They used instant. Why are you pre-making the pre-made? Holy That tells me a lot about how this chicken might be, so let's start there. Is this a whole thigh with the bone in it? I mean, that's kind of cool. Let's try the breading first. Jesus. I mean, this is like depressed KFC. All right, moving on. The mashed potatoes. Not as bad as I thought they would be. Corn. I mean, it's frozen corn, it's all right. Super chewy. Time for dessert. There's a little piece of corn in there. Hate that. This brownie tastes like a Weight Watchers brownie. They like sweetened it with like Splenda, so it's super bitter and not like from the chocolate, from like artificial sweetener. This is the era where doctors were like, depression doesn't exist. It's abysmal. This, I guess, was like the attempt at convenience, right? Everybody wants convenience, but there was no convenient infrastructure. So they thought, well, we'll freeze it and you microwave it, right? That's the answer to all things. Nobody wanted to spend time on stuff all of a sudden because we became so busy. We're even busier today, but somehow we care more about food today. But we'll get to that later. 1 year later, 1955, maybe one of the biggest moments in American food history. Ray Kroc opens the first McDonald's, but they now have over 40,000 McDonald's worldwide, which essentially monopolized and kicked off the fast food restaurant craze. This is a big deal.
Hi, welcome to McDonald's. Will you be using your mobile app today?
No. Can I just get a double quarter pounder with cheese? Here it is. Hold on, what? Is this real? Where the are we? Look at my yard. That still smells like though. It really does. It doesn't smell good at all. It's actually not bad. Who's running this place? Hello? Is this real? Look at my yard. Whoa. Okay, so like the salt levels weren't there at all, and there wasn't like a ton of flavor, but it did kind of have the texture I was looking for. The meat was a little chewy, but in comparison to the other McDonald's burgers, where was this burger the whole time? I mean, it's still nowhere near an ideal smash burger, but that might have been the greatest McDonald's hamburger I've ever had. Notice how I said McDonald's.
Now we're getting closer to the modern day. We're fast forwarding to the 1980s, the greatest thing to ever happen to an underbaked cake. Molten chocolate cake, also known as chocolate lava cake, was sort of created, but there's a conflicting story. No one knows exactly who invented it, but our old friend Jean-Georges claims he did, and I'll be honest with you. After almost losing to him in a cook-off, I'm gonna take his word. Also, he's really sweet, and I love him.
You're telling me you don't want to give that man a kiss on the forehead and then let him kiss you back on the forehead? I certainly would. Why are you laughing, Vicar? I'm serious right now. So look, it's a very simple thing. I feel like most people like a chocolate molten lava cake. It's two things in one. You get a nice moist cake, but you also get that fudgy sauce. Some say put a coin of ganache in there and let it melt. Some say undercook the cake. Who gives a I just want the inside to be molten and delicious, and this is. The outside of the cake is tender, it melts in your mouth, and it all kind of becomes one silky, harmonious texture at the end of the day. It's not too sweet, it's balanced, got a little bit of saltiness, it's chocolatey. I like it. This is a good invention. It's a step forward on the humble cake. Now, moving on.
Moving into the 2000s, finally, a technological innovation, the first sous vide circulator for the home kitchen. You see, at this point in time, what do people really care about? Necessity? No, not at all. Precision. Everything is exactly how we want, maximum control, every time, all the time. God forbid we get something that isn't cooked perfectly. Ideally, you want a real thick steak, seasoned aggressively with salt and pepper, vacuum sealed, dropped into a sous vide bath. This one is 54 Celsius. Cook for about an hour to an hour 30. Remove, rested, seared, basted, rested again, sliced, maybe add a little flaky salt. Now that we don't have to eat meat directly over a fire like earlier, let's try and see if this is a little better.
A steak really benefits from a sous vide methodology when it's a big boy. So you can really see how it gets that perfect cook as close to edge as possible. Obviously, when you sear it, you get a little bit of a gray ring, but the point is it's tender and it is perfectly cooked. The precision of a device. Now the flavor though. I didn't put a lot on this. I didn't put garlic or rosemary or thyme. I didn't marinate it. I just put it in a bag in a hot water bath. And I have a tender, juicy, not dry at all, perfectly cooked ribeye. And it's got that beautiful little crust because of the par cook that it received beforehand. Could you do this with a reverse sear in an oven? Sure, but it won't be as accurate. And that is the modern day level of precision that you only get from a sous vide. The story doesn't end here. We have one last stop, the modern day. Finally, the 2010s and 2020s. We're talking birria ramen, butter chicken calzones, and one of the first fusion cuisines, Korean Mexican food like this kimchi quesadilla. Look, it's very basic. You put a whole tortilla in a pan, heat it over medium heat, immediately sprinkle a nice melting cheese, that could be mozzarella, Oaxacan cheese, on 1/2 of the tortilla. Try to keep it a 1/4 inch layer, no thicker than that. Add on some chopped kimchi, then sprinkle on just a little bit more cheese. Once half the cheese that's closest to the pan is melted, fold your tortilla over, flip, and continue to heat on the other side until the cheese is melted throughout. Take it out, cut it into quarters. Optionally, you can serve this with a side of a kimchi mayo. In a small bowl, you're gonna add 1 cup or 240 grams of kubi mayonnaise, a 1/4 cup or 60 grams of kimchi paste, that's kimchi that's been blended, a 1/4 cup or 60 grams of sriracha, 1 teaspoon or 4 grams of shio koji. You can also just maybe do a little pinch of MSG if you don't have it. Finally, 2 teaspoons or 8 grams of soy sauce,
2 cloves of grated garlic.
whisk all that together, and that is your mayo. If you wanna add more salt, taste and adjust as necessary. Now, let's taste. Kimchi quesadilla with a kimchi mayo. I don't care what anyone has to say. This is something special. Somehow, this is the most perfect combination. The ingredients that came together to make this happen came from different periods in time, from different parts of the world. But I have an important point to make here. We now have access to the entire world's complete database of food, food culture, cooking, all of us at our fingertips, assuming you're watching this. We can ship ingredients from any part of the world to our front doorstep, and most things are available year-round nowadays. And this has given us the privilege to combine things that would have never even come in contact together even 100 years ago. And that is what makes the modern day and the future special. It means we can make things that never existed before by looking at the past. Some people will say that they hate it and to respect only tradition. But I say, respect tradition, but learn how to break the rules. Because there's always progress to be made if you're willing to utilize the full power of knowledge that we have today. That is what today's video is about. So I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.